Good morning, everyone. Welcome to spring semester 2022. I hope you all had a wonderful winter break. I know I did. Much needed rest there before we head into a new semester. I am Heather Wells. I am the program director for the PTA program here at Wallace, and I'm the current chairperson for the Professional Development Committee. So on behalf of the Professional Development Committee, I do want to welcome you to today's session.
Thank you, Dr. Wells, and good morning to everyone. Let me take this mask off for a few minutes. I think you might can hear me a little bit better. Welcome back. Hope you did have a great rest and a wonderful holiday season. As Dr. Wells said, we hope to have this meeting in person. We planned for quite a while now to have the meeting in person. But had to change our plans with the uptick in COVID. We felt like it was only prudent that we do the meeting virtually. So it's a difficult time now with respect to COVID. I know you'll probably agree with me that every moment's been difficult dealing with COVID.
This is what we call workplace stress. So what is it exactly? It is a harmful physical, emotional response that occurs when the demand of the job is overwhelming, okay?
Good morning. Thank you, Ms. Mosley. What I'm going to do at this point in time is actually just kind of come behind her, even though her presentation was geared to us. I know you have students, and a lot of times your students might be having some issues, and we have contracted with Spectra Care to provide counseling for our students. I know you're aware of this. I just want to refresh your memory about this.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting semester here at Wallace Community College. This morning, it is my honor and privilege to introduce our keynote speaker. Dr. Ervin Jackson received his Bachelor's of Arts in Biblical Studies from Heritage Christian University in the spring of '93. He then went on to complete a Master's of Arts in New Testament Studies at Freed-Hardeman University. He earned a second Master's in Higher Education Administration from the University of Alabama in 1995. He then continued his education, earning an interdisciplinary PhD in organizational leadership from the University of Alabama. His dissertation investigated the impact of diverse team transformational leadership on the culture of a historically African-American Church of Christ. Over the course of his career, Dr. Jackson has served in a number of significant roles. At Heritage Christian University in Florence, Alabama, he served as Associate Professor of Church Leadership, and he was the Dean of Students. At Amherst University in Montgomery, he was the Dean of the School of Business and Leadership, as well as Professor of Leadership Studies. Dr. Jackson has served as a senior pastor at 4 churches over the past 30 years and successfully developed a multi-ethnic church in the Quad Cities area of Alabama. Dr. Jackson is bilingual. He speaks both English and Spanish, and he is, for the most part, self-taught in his study of Spanish and is quite fluent. He has published and co-authored numerous books and articles. He has spoken at numerous conferences, summits, workshops, and campaigns throughout the world, in the United States, of course, in Africa, Mexico, Guatemala, Peru, the Ukraine, and Russia. Currently, Dr. Jackson serves as Professor of Speech at Pasco Hernando State College in the Newport Richey area of North Tampa. He's also an adjunct e-learning faculty at Eastern Florida State College on the Palm Bay campus. And Dr. Jackson also works with the Center for Teaching Excellence, where he developed the Intercultural Principles for Accelerating Student Success series. This series is designed to strengthen college-wide teaching by connecting faculty with information, resources, and best practice ideas that enhance student success. Dr. Jackson has also been a key person in developing the Minority Male College-Wide Initiative, which seeks to increase the retention of minority males. Now, that's the short list of Dr. Jackson's accomplishments and credentials. His CV is about 2 pages longer, and you can read that on his LinkedIn page if you'd like. But what his CV won't tell you in so many words is that he's also a regular guy, and he's a great teacher. You see, I met Dr. Jackson as I sat in his St. Paul's letter to the Romans class many years ago, in fact, 25 years ago, at Heritage Christian University. And it was there that a tremendous bond was formed. Dr. Jackson, or Ervin as I call him, became one of the most significant teachers, friends, mentors, colleagues, and coworkers that I've ever had. Now, that doesn't mean that we always got along with each other. In fact, we used to argue a lot. We still get in a good argument. But in the process, what I learned about Dr. Jackson is that he truly cares about people. Where some people find fault, he finds opportunity. Where others see the bad, he sees the good. And where most people want to give up and give in, he seeks to encourage and empower. So when the Professional Development Committee was brainstorming about who we might find to speak to us today, I immediately thought of him, because all of us could use some positivity and some encouragement in the times in which we live. So without further ado, I present to you Dr. Ervin C. Jackson.
Thank you, Riley. Thank you. I really appreciate your kind words. Riley and I go back a long way. In fact, I received a call from Leslie Reeder, who was the Dean of Instructional Affairs. But when the telephone number came up, it said Riley Turner. So I said, "What's up, Riley?" like that. And she just had to laugh as we interacted, because Riley and I, we just go a long way back. I look forward to coming to visit all of you guys and be there on the campus and interact with you. But evidently, Corona decided to change our plans and make it a little different. I appreciate the words that were communicated by Dr. Linda C. Young, the president, and also Dr. Heather Wells. But then I was listening to Ms. Pamela Mosley, and I just want you to know I appreciate your words about how we should handle this particular time, because Corona is nothing to play with. Corona is a royal pain, definitely a royal pain. And Corona is very progressive. It actually is going through the Greek alphabet. I remember learning Greek, and I'm starting to get concerned because it's made its way all the way to Delta, and then it moved from Delta over to Omicron. And when that thing gets to Omega, I think I'm going underground and I'm hiding out, because I don't want anything to do with it once it becomes the Omega variant. But I know as long as you wash your hands and you're taking care, you're wearing your mask and you're doing all of those things, we appreciate it. The other day I was at a meeting, and the person that was conducting it kept coughing. They kept coughing, and I was concerned. I felt like ducking in order to make sure that I didn't get in the way. Luckily, it was on Zoom, and so I didn't have to worry. So if I cough, don't worry. Just thank your administrators that they decided to have the insight to protect you from Corona and make this a better experience. Now, it's going to change the dynamic of how we present, and I'm going to do some things just like I would do if I were there. I'm going to ask you for interaction and interactivity. Now, I would like to see the information and all the things that I ask you, and I really want to see that some type of productivity that you guys were engaged in. You did what I asked you to do. And so through your administration and all your creativity, I'm going to tap into the larger mind and let you figure out how to resolve this issue. But I'm going to tell you some things and I want to see how you do it. If you can't do it the way I tell you to do it, hey, figure another way. But I want you to be involved. When was the last time that you actually felt neglected? When is that? When did you feel overlooked? Have you ever been in that kind of situation? Have you ever felt unimportant? Have you ever felt like people were treating you as if you were unimportant? And then the thing that I want to ask you about is why did you feel that way? Why did you feel neglected? Did you feel that somehow you were overlooked? Did you feel that maybe you were ignored? Did you feel disregarded? Well, unfortunately, all of us at some point, we feel that way. Every single one of us at some point in our lives, we gonna feel that people might think that we're unimportant. But I'm gonna resolve that problem. I'm gonna fix that problem today. I know that that's big and a tall order, but I'm gonna fix that. And the way that I'm going to fix that is somewhere I need you to communicate. If you have access to a chat, I want you to type it in the chat. So what I want you to do is I want you to write down, I am important. I need you to write down those words. If it's nothing but writing it down with pencil and paper, if that's all you have, I just want you to write down, I am important. But I really want somebody else to see it. So if your chat works, do it. If you could text somebody, I'm important, that you know is online with you, a fellow colleague or something, write, I am important, and send it to them. In fact, I'm kind of curious how many people will text one another, I am important. In fact, put your name down. say if you can call me Dr. J. Right now I'm getting ready to be Dr. J. That's what everybody lovingly calls me, Dr. J at the college. I like Julia service back in the day, and so when I became a doctor and I started interacting with students, I started calling myself Dr. J. And so Dr. J is important. Now for some of us it's easy to say it. For some of us it's easier to say it. For others it's difficult. It really is, to say that you're important. But I want you to know that you are important. The overall goal that I have is to help you to resolve the issue of feeling unimportant. I want you to understand that, you know what? You are an intricate part of the whole that you're involved in. And one of the things that I see occur at the beginning of every semester that I think is really interesting. How many of you use Canvas? I know those of you that are faculty, you're familiar with Canvas. And when you open up Canvas the first day of class, you have these students that didn't do their orientation. At least that's how it is at Eastern Florida State College. They haven't done their orientation. And for some reason, instead of being listed as a student, they're listed as an observing nobody. An observing nobody. And what happens is I break the ice with everybody. I start interacting with everybody and I start joking with everybody, and I'll call them up if they have interesting last names. I'll start messing around with last names and having them to tell me the origin of their last name. Some of them say they don't know their last name. I'm wondering, how can you go all this time without knowing your last name? You need to know what your last name is. And before the end of this semester, I want to know where your last name came from, because it's so interesting. But anyway, by the time I get to the end, those observing nobodies didn't show up on the roster. And I would tell them, I said, the reason that I didn't get to call your name at the beginning is simply because it lists you as an observing nobody. But one thing I always tell them is that, you know what, even though it calls you an observing nobody, you're not a nobody. You're somebody. In fact, everybody is somebody. And so I would always communicate the importance of who that student is and how that they are somebody, well, you're important. And that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about what it really means to be important. Now, I'm going to kind of take a trait theory approach because I'm going to talk about different traits that are connected with this concept of important. Now, here's where I need your help. I'm going to use an acrostic, and the acrostic is important. That's what it's going to be. And as I do it, I want you to help me by telling me what you think should be the letter. So as we look at the word important, the first one is I. Now I want you to write down, what do you think my first point will be based on the letter I? Well, let me tell you, interdependent, being interdependent. You see, one of the things that I believe is what John Donne said a long time ago. John Donne said, no man is an island to himself. I was back in the time where everything was masculine oriented, but we understand that no person is an island to themselves. Basically, everyone is dependent on something else and one another. I always have that student that sits in class and says, no, I don't need anybody. I don't need anyone. But you know what? We all need someone because we are interdependent. We can't exist alone. It's just totally impossible. We are made to interact with our environment. We definitely are. And there's all kind of studies that prove this fact. And actually just our own common sense. You just go a few days without eating and you go a few days without drinking. And after a while, you'll recognize how interdependent you are. You get on that highway and start driving without paying attention to anyone around you. Just get out there and start driving and closing your eyes. And you'll recognize very quickly that you are interdependent. You start driving about 95 to 100 miles an hour, which I do from time to time. But anyway, you start doing that and you'll find out that you are interdependent because somebody's going to stop you. You're going to have some kind of negative interaction if you keep functioning that way. You see, you're integral, but you're not it. Unless you're Mr. Patrick Atkinson, the Director of Information Technologies. He's IT, and I'll tell you, he's been it for these last couple of days. He's right on point, and I just want you to know that I appreciate you, Patrick. You've been doing a good job. But you know what? The thing that we all need to understand is that we're not all that there is. We're not all that there is. Basically, we need one another. And that's a part. Important people understand that. They understand that they are independent. Now, let's go on. Let's move to the next one. What do you think M is? Well, this is what I think M should be, a trait of importance. Important people are motivated. They're motivated. Have you ever thought about what drives you? What makes you do what you do? What causes you to go to work? What causes you, if you're in administration, why do you do it? If you teach, why do you do it? If you're support staff, why do you do it? Why do you do what you do? What motivates you? Well, one of the things about important people is they found what motivates them. And that's what drives their interaction. That's what drives their behavior. One of the things I've learned is I love the classroom. I really do. I love the classroom. To me, going to the classroom is like going to the playground. It really is. From the first day I walk in and I start talking to those students, I'm there to have fun, and they know it. If you were to look me up on Rate My Professor, you're not going to find me at PHSC because literally, actually, my first day at PHSC is tomorrow. Tomorrow will be my first day as faculty because I left from Eastern Florida State College, but I was at Eastern Florida State College for about 12 years. And so if you look up Eastern Florida State College and you look up Dr. J or Ervin Jackson, you're going to find out that the student said he's hilarious. He honestly cares about the student. He really does. Because when I go to that classroom, that's my playground. That's my playground. I enjoy it. I really do. It's like I came here and I'm on permanent vacation. When I go into the classroom, it's not work for me. It's enjoyable. So important people, they're definitely motivated. The classroom for me is a place to mentor. It's a place to encourage. It's a place to really help individuals move forward. And I love it. Okay, so that's M. What do you think I'm going to say for P? What do you think should be there? Well, here's what I think it is. I'm going to say a good characteristic and a good trait of important people is they're positive. They're positive. Now, you know what? Even Riley will tell you, I tend to be a positive person. I think if you were to listen to a lot of the things that he said as he introduced me, I'm a positive person. But one thing about being positive is you don't want your head up in the cloud. Yeah, it's good to be an optimist. And I think that you want to avoid being overly pessimistic. You definitely do, but you need balance. See, one thing about positivity, in my understanding of it, is it's being realistic enough not to deny that you're going to face problems and that you're going to have issues in life. That's something that's a part of life. You accept that, but yeah, you can be positive about it. Positive says that I'm going to respond to whatever comes my way, and I'm going to overcome. I'm going to be able to make it through. There's no obstacle formed against me that will be able to overcome me. I know some of you know where that came from. But anyway, there's nothing that can stop me. In other words, there's a rainbow after the rain. There's a rainbow after the rain. That's the mentality you have to have. Because if you think everything is going to come crash down and that's all there is, then guess what? There's no hope. But important people, they're positive. You know, I was reading a book called Outliers. And Outliers is a very interesting book by a guy by the name of Malcolm Gladwell. I'm reading the book, but I was listening to him do a lecture, and he was talking about the Asian culture and their approach to math. And he says, in his research, he found out that as most Americans approach math, many of us just feel like we don't have the aptitude to do it. So therefore, we don't try. We may not do as well. But he says the Asian culture, they have a different kind of culture there. They believe that there's no problem that you can't overcome. And so therefore, because they believe that all problems are solvable, one of his explanations is that's the reason that they do better in the area of mathematics. Well, let's move to the next one. All right, hopefully you're getting this. Hopefully you're liking this. The next letter is O. What do you think I'm going to talk about? What do you think is a trait and characteristic of important people that begins with O? Well, let me tell you what I think. You're outcome oriented. Important people are outcome oriented. You see, important people want to avoid status quo. They want to go and excel. That's what important people do. In other words, how do you know? How do you know you're not just functioning at status quo? How do you know that? Do you set goals for yourself? Do you reward yourself when you obtain those goals? Do you challenge yourself to go beyond? Do you find yourself being able to function not simply because of externally imposed expectations, but you do it because of self-imposed expectations? In other words, when you go to work, do you go to work and you excel at work, not because you have to, but simply because you want to? Those are important people. Important people are outcome oriented. Now here's another aspect. It begins with an R. This is what I think it is. I think important people are real people. They're real people. What I mean by real is they're transparent and not fake. You know, a lot of people want to put on airs. They want to wear a fake face, a facade. But real people are real. Real people And you know what? People appreciate realness. I can tell you the first time I walked into a classroom, about 12 years ago, I didn't know what to expect as a teaching speech. But I walked in and I remember the first speeches, the introductory speeches, and I was so impressed because individuals got up and they began to be very transparent, very transparent. They started sharing things that I couldn't believe that they would share. But that transparency began to communicate to me, help me to understand that transparency is not a bad thing. Transparency is a good thing. And many people appreciate it. In fact, what ends up happening is when a person is real, then that individual develops the trust of other people a lot quicker. They really do, more quickly. They develop genuine relationships. You know, I can look back and have genuine relationships with people simply because I want to be real. I want to be real. And with my students, you know, students, in fact, when you begin to look at these younger generations, they're looking to see if you're real. Here's the thing, they're having trouble. Don't ever try to say and neglect that you've had trouble with things. Sometimes by you sharing where you've had trouble, you identify and they identify with you. And so that's one of the things. I find points where the students will connect with me simply because of the realness that I show. And so the realness that you show is that which will help you. Here's another quality that I believe. It starts with a T. Wondering what you think it is. But I'm gonna tell you what I think it is. I think important people are teachable. They're teachable. They really are. They're not know-it-alls. Know-it-alls have problems. You see, know-it-alls, they the problem is they think they know it all. And as a result of that, they limit what they're able to learn. I remember there was a kid, we nicknamed him because whenever we would have a conversation, that kid always knew or either thought they knew about the subject. They always wanted to be the person that knew the most about a subject. Well, the nickname we called him was Bull. We called that person Bull. And the reason we called him Bull is because they were always talking a lot of bull. Well, if you're teachable, then what ends up happening is you're able to learn, you're able to develop. You know, sometimes the student has a lot they can tell you and help you with. Your colleagues, they have a lot they can help you with. And so therefore, we have to be teachable. You know, I told you, I've been teaching speech for a long while. And one of the things that I do at the beginning of the class is I said, you know what? I'm going to be your student this semester. I said, I love learning. And I talk about my academic background, how that I have a bachelor's and 2 master's degrees and a PhD. I said, I love learning, I really do. I said, and I love teaching speech because I actually come to class to learn. I tell them they can talk about whatever they want to talk about, whatever floats their boat, because I'm going to be their student. I said, I just ask you one thing. When you get up and you teach me, you make sure you know what you're talking about. You make sure that you've researched it. You make sure that you've done your homework. I've heard a lot of topics, but you know, every semester, they don't fail me because I'm always hearing some new thing and I'm always learning. Important people are teachable. They're teachable. Are you teachable? Now here's another thing, another characteristic. Starts with the letter A. What do you think it is? All right, here's what it is. It is accountable. Accountable. Important people take ownership. They really do. Important people, they assume personal responsibility for things. And the reason that they do that is because when you're accountable, it increases the quality of your behavior. That's what it does. It increases the quality of what you do. If you're always trying to pass it off, you're always trying to make excuses, then you're not responsible, and you lower your importance in the view of others. Fred Darthett, that Riley and I, we had an elder. His name was Fred Darthett. And Fred Darthett was always communicating these wise sayings. And Fred Darthett, he would look at us and he would say, Jackson, Riley, he says, all an excuse is a dressed up lie. A lot of people take time to make excuses instead of being accountable. But your importance, especially in the view of other people, is when you will be accountable. I have another one. I do. This is the end. What do you think I would be saying is a characteristic of importance that begins with N? Well, here it is. Non-discriminatory. Non-discriminatory. You know what? This is the age of diversity. This is the age of inclusion. It really is. It's really important that we make everyone feel a part, that we include, that we don't exclude people, especially our students and even individuals that we work with, our colleagues. We have to be non-discriminatory. I remember I walked in a class one time and there was a student that was sitting in the front, and they looked at me and they said, Dr. J, they said, what pronouns do you use? I looked at them. They said, I use Z and Zer. I said, Z and what? They said, I use Z and Zer. I said, what's a Z and a Zer? I'm wondering, what are you talking about? And so I got over there and I started looking it up, and I was saying, oh man, you're going to have to do your speech on Z and Zer. And that individual said, I want you to call me Z and Zer for the rest of the semester. I said, cool. If that's what you want to be called, that's what it shall be. So I called Zer, Z, all the way through the semester. And I also told her that if I ever mess it up, you stop me in the middle of the class and correct me. And I have no problem with that. We have to be non-discriminatory. Because you remember what I said? Everybody is somebody. Everybody. And I think that we need to learn to find something to appreciate in everyone. We really do. Riley can tell you about this. When we were working at the church together, there were some individuals who would live in an assisted living facility, and they would come to our church. And some may have been on the spectrum, and some may have IQs maybe lower than normal. And I don't know, when I say normal, I don't know if I should have used that, but that might be different than others. And I remember somebody pulled me aside and said, why do you spend so much time talking to those individuals? And the reason that I gave them is because I believe that everybody is somebody. Everyone is somebody, and we all should interact with everyone with love. We really do. And so therefore, when you practice love, you're going to be non-discriminatory. You're not going to separate. You may not necessarily agree with everything and everybody, but the thing is you can love everybody. And so therefore, you have to apply that same ethic to everyone? Well, we're to the T. And what do you think it is? Well, here's what I think it is. I think that this T, I've already talked about teachable, but this one is timely. Timely. Now, what do I mean by timely? Well, when I talk about timely, I'm talking about being relevant. That's what I'm talking about. Being relevant. See, we live in a dynamic world. It's an ever-changing world. All kinds of things are going on. We're moving billions and billions and billions of miles per hour at a time, believe it or not. Nothing remains the same. Education is changing. The vehicles, the classes that you offer, they're changing. The demand of the world and what it's asking of the college, it's changing. And if you're not aware of the dynamic nature of the system that we're in, and what ends up happening is you reach entropy. You stop being relevant. But your relevancy has to do with your understanding of time and what's going on. I mean, think about it, your telephone. What kind of telephone you have and how long have you had it? Some of you are looking at it and, you know, there was a time where everybody BlackBerry was talking about BlackBerry. I don't hear very many. I got a tickle at one time, but when I went out to a family reunion, I saw my brother. And my brother, he had that old BlackBerry telephone and he's pushing in text with his hand. And I just thought it was so funny because basically we walk around with computers in our hand. In fact, I remember I'm a Trekkie back in the day. And, you know, Captain Kirk, boom, he would open up that little thing and say, beam me up, Scotty. I think I have technology that was more up to date than Captain Kirk at that time. Because we live in an age where things are changing. The thing is, what about the way you function in the society? What about the way you function in your classroom? What about the way you function when students come up to you and ask for information? What about the way you function when you interact with your colleagues? Are you recognizing the time? Riley told you I worked with the Center for Teaching Excellence and I developed an iPad series, which is Intercultural Principles for Accelerating Student Success. And the iPad series was developed aimed at faculty and staff to help them to understand how to treat everyone in view of the changes that are occurring within our society and know how to respect every individual, no matter what culture, ethnicity, no matter where they see themselves on the gender continuum. We need to know how to interact with people. Therefore, we must be relevant. And the concept of relevance is this. You see, if you're not relevant, why pay attention? Why are they going to pay attention to you? One of the things I tell the students to talk about, I said, I want you to choose a subject, but figure out how to make it relevant to us. Make us want to listen. Make us want to, because we see where it fits and connects with us. Well, those are a lot of points, but you know what? I need you to do something. I want to, as the preacher would say, I want to use your sanctified imagination for a minute. I want you to imagine right now, just imagine a semester where everybody comes to Wallace Community College. But when they come, the faculty is not there. Can you imagine that? For a whole semester, everybody is coming except for the faculty. I don't know what the faculty are doing. I mean, they have a lot of days off and a lot of time off. And so all of a sudden they decide that they're just not going to come at all. How would that affect things? Can you imagine that? Faculty are saying, yeah, we're important. We're important. Yeah, everybody can see that. Faculty, you're important. But wait a minute. Let's back up. Let's start the semester again. Now, as we start the semester again, this time faculty, you're there. You're there. But guess what? Administration is not there. Administration decides, hey, this semester, we're not going to show up. We're going to do our own thing. We're going somewhere else. And so therefore, you're there, the students there, everybody's there, except for the administration, faculty. Very quickly, you begin to recognize you're not the only one that's important. I mean, don't you want to get paid? I know I want to get paid. Wait a minute, those people in HR, they're not here. Wait a minute, the people that are advisors, they're not here. Well, wait a minute, so who's going to pick up the slack? Faculty. Who's going to do it? Wait a minute, let's back up. We're going to back up the semester again. And now we're starting over again. Now the faculty's there, the administration is there, but the support staff, where'd they go? They disappeared. You go to the restroom. There's no toilet paper. You go to the restroom. No one has cleaned the toilets or the floors, or no one has emptied the trash. No one has. Could you imagine a whole semester of that? And maybe you could suffice by saying, oh, well, I'll do this and I'll do that. But I tell you real quick, if you went a semester that way, you begin to recognize how important that support staff is. One of the things that I do, a large amount of our support staff at the college where I was speaks Spanish. And you know what? I would take time, and Riley could tell you this, I do it anyway, but I would always speak, and I'm always interacting with them and getting to know them, asking them where they're from and all of that, where I begin to develop a friendship even with them, simply because, you know what? Everybody's important. Now imagine this, we're going to rewind one more time. Support staff is there. Your faculty is there. Your administration is there. But guess what? Students decide, I'm not coming. The students decide that they're not going to be there at all. What kind of college would that be? What kind of college would Wallace Community College be without students? Are y'all imagining with me? Yeah. You know what? Everyone is important. In that book I was telling you about, Malcolm Gladwell, he talks about one of the smartest men in America. His name was Chris Langan. And Chris Langan tried to go to college. He tried to go to school, Reed University. And he ran into some issues. His father wasn't in the picture, actually was a very negative guy, was very abusive. And Chris Langan put on muscle in order to actually handle his father, and his father left. His mother wasn't really very responsible in certain areas, and Langan took it on himself to go to college. But he ran into some trouble, financial trouble, transportation trouble. So what he did is he went to his school and began to communicate to administrators. First, he went to the faculty and tried to work a deal where he could change his class, and they wouldn't change anything. They wouldn't let him in. He went to someone higher, and they evidently denied it. And so basically he just dropped out. Here I'm talking about the smartest individual. He dropped out of college in his first year. But yet, he's a genius. I think that every single one of you can agree with me that everybody is important. Everyone is important. Mary Kay Ash says, everyone wears a sign, that says, make me feel important. Marsh Kennedy says, everyone needs reminders of the fact of being on this earth is important and that each life changes everything. So you started out by saying you are important. But let me see if you can do this next thing. Do me a favor. And if you have access to someone around you, tell them you're important. You're important. Because everybody needs to hear it. Maybe you can text somebody right now. And you can text them and say, you know what? You're important. Maybe that individual that you just told, I'm important, turn to them and say, you're important. In fact, you know what? I gave you my email address, jacksoe@phsc. I wouldn't mind if you sent something to me and said, hey, Dr. J, you're important. Because everybody is important. I want you to do this, not just for today, but this semester. Start telling people they're important. Tell your students they're important. Tell your colleagues they're important. Tell the support staff, tell the administration they're important. And I tell you what, if everybody starts telling one another that they're important, you'll see a cultural change that will be phenomenal at WCC. I appreciate you inviting me. I really looked forward to coming and seeing you face to face. It didn't happen this time, but maybe there'll be a next time. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Thank you, all of you important people out there for being with us today. I know that I'm feeling important and refreshed and ready to teach our important students this semester. I hope you have enjoyed what we have had for you today. And as promised, we're short and sweet today so that you can get to work on preparing for this very important upcoming semester. So we'll see you later. Thank you. Bye-bye.